Hey y'all, welcome to Upside Down with Lisa T. We finally made it. Today's show is different. Today's show is going to be different, done differently than any of our other shows. We have been working hard to get ready for Upside Down with Lisa T. It's been a little crazy. We ran into a few issues, of course. Anything worth doing is going to have a few problems, right? Today's show is different because it's my upside down story. Now, I'm not going to bore you with a lot of ugly stuff because it's not what it's about. I'm not going to mention names. I'm just going to kind of flow through on why and how and where we're at today. I want to say that as we go along in our show, we're going to be interviewing a lot of people with a lot of different stories. We're going to be going on adventures. It's going to be about music. It's going to be about life in general. I mean, reality, real reality, a different type of reality show. But it's going to tell stories of where we all hit our breaking point, I guess you can say. That point to where you're like, enough is enough. I don't want to be this person anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. What the heck's wrong with me? And you ask that question a lot. All right, why this show came about? Well, I'm an abuse survivor. I have been abused a lot in my life. And when you read my book, I'm not going to tell it live on this platform, but when you read my book, you'll see and understand that when I say I've been abused pretty much all my life, I've been abused pretty much all my life. Physically, mentally, emotionally, and sexually. When I was young, I was abused quite often, physically, mentally, emotionally, and then of course the sexual abuse started slipping in. So it's no way for anybody to grow up. And then when it created a pattern for me. It created a pattern that I wasn't aware of. So as I went along in my years and I decided to get into relationships, I was looking for that bad boy that stuck within my pattern, even though I knew deep down that it wasn't right. Nobody should be treated that way. But I did. I looked for those, if you want to put a title on it, narcissistic men, because I had my share of them. And it was almost like I went through school of them, kindergarten from home and then on up, but I actually graduated college a couple of years ago with a gentleman that I was with. Now, as I tell this story, please understand this is nothing about revenge. I have forgiven everybody. I have asked everybody to forgive me, and I have admitted my wrongs to people that I know needed it, that I needed it. I needed to come and make my amends as well, because I'm not innocent in anything. And if you think you are, you might want to go check yourself, because that big old ego is going to get on you. Trust me. That ego likes you. It loved me, evidently. So anyway, as we went along throughout the years, I attracted abusive men. Physically, like I said, mainly physically and mentally. Words hurt, and words can cause a lot of damage. I became a mother as I went along. And one thing I have to say is, everything that I have been talking about and writing about in my book, it has woke me up to some things, especially recently. I put my kids through hell. I put them through hell. I never once thought, 1 second, other than I'm keeping them safe. I done all I could to keep my kids safe, trust me. I worked a lot. I worked a whole lot. But I never ever, in my mind, did I ever think, if this is happening to me, this is happening to my kids. Because I really thought my children would, I don't know. I don't really know what I thought. I'm not going to lie. That's a part of me that hasn't healed yet with some of my family. So stuff I'm not going to really discuss on that part. I've done a lot of things that wasn't correct, but I'm good with all that now. I had to do all this stuff and learn this stuff. I had to go through these lessons, or I would have still continued to this day doing what I've been doing, which is kind of insane, because every time I got with somebody who was abusive, and love bombed and all that good jazz. I expected different results. This one's going to be different. I can fix him. Remember that one? Oh, yeah, I said that a lot. So, yeah, I've always been a fixer. And one thing I never fixed was myself. I wanted to fix everybody but me because there was nothing wrong with me. It was everybody else, right? Let it go. Let it go. Yeah, it takes over. So anyway, as I went along, and I say we because there was a lot of people involved in my life as I went along, and I started learning a lot of lessons. I started getting less blessings, and come to about 6 years ago. No, we're going to go a little further back than that. We're going to go about 10 years ago. I met a wonderful woman. She was in the spiritual realm, and she became my life coach. She started showing me things that I never really saw. And I've always felt myself being a spiritual person, and I've always been considered a Christian woman that kind of fell off the wayside. We do it, we get back up, we do it again, and we continue to do it until we get it right. One thing I never stopped, it was trying to get it right. Got a lot of crap that way, but I still try to get it right all the time. So when I met this lady, she was just wonderful, and she's my friend to today. I mean, so I was also with a young man that treated me well. Actually treated me well. Didn't really know what to do with it at that time, but he was a friend of mine, and we had known each other for a while, and we gave it a go, and it didn't work out that way. But it was a great experience because he did treat me well. In my book, you'll also hear some things that went on while I was living there that was had to do with me. So when I left, I moved in at my sister's, and then I started to continue on my spiritual trail. I would meditate every day. I was getting myself back. I was doing everything that I thought I was supposed to do. But I wasn't. I wasn't healing anything. I was just covering it up with a prayer. It didn't work. It didn't work at all. Because what did I do? I jumped right back into that narcissistic relationship again. And this time it was the college. It wasn't K through 12. It was actual college of narcissistic abuse. I went to Florida. I went down with, I always wanted to live in Florida. So when I was asked to come down, and I was promised some things that never was true, and that was my bad. Everything in me told me not to, but I did it anyway. Didn't listen to that intuition. Trust me, that gut will keep you out of so much crap if you listen. If I had listened a long time ago, I'd be in a lot different position. But then again, I wouldn't be able to share with you guys everything that I need to share as we go along. So my story is going to be told throughout all these shows by other people, and as far as relatability. So I moved to Florida. It was a great 3 months. He did show me how I wanted to be treated by a man. I really thought he was so much different. And within those 3 months, he did everything right. Made me fall head over heels for this man. I mean, I did. I fell head over heels for him. And then after that 3 month mark, and as I've thought back to the patterns of narcissists, 3 months is it. So after that 3 month mark, things went crazy. I knew he was a recovering addict. I didn't know he was still active addict. I didn't know he had just gotten out of jail. I knew he had been in jail months and months before, years before, done some crazy things, but everybody's allowed to change and everybody's allowed to have that redo. He presented himself as a spiritual man. Do I believe he was? Of course I do. He was just a little lost on his trail. He was ill. He was sick. And he really had some ways about him that I could fix. I'm going to fix him. Didn't work that way. I ended up being hit on quite a bit. I ended up being mentally tormented. At first, he wanted me to stay with him 24/7, work from home. We both knew marketing. We both did marketing. And then when we moved, we decided to do the RV life, so we would move from campground to campground. But at first, the first move was willing. The rest of the moves weren't. The rest of the moves we got run off due to domestic violence or noises, because when he would get high, he would do some crazy things. He would have hallucinations. I would end up having to hide all the knives. I had to hide keys. It was no way to live for anybody. He threatened to kill himself a lot. So what do? I mean, I'm the fix-it girl. I can't leave this man alone. If he kills himself, it's going to be my fault, right? So this is my program thinking that I have had implanted in me pretty much all my life. Don't tell, by the way. You never tell, because if you tell, you're being disloyal, and they may change tomorrow. And if you tell and they change tomorrow, then what? It's like, out here loving somebody, and then all of a sudden you have a problem, and you go tell Joe Blow your problem, and then tomorrow it's better, and then you're embarrassed as all get out. And when I went to Florida, my whole family knew I was going and what reasons I was going. Some of them agreed, some of them didn't. But when I got there and everything started happening, and my family was correct, by the way, what was I going to do? Call them and go, hey, y'all are right, come get me? No, because I was prideful and I was in my ego. And I just knew every day I could fix this. I could fix this. He's a man of God. I can fix this. I know he leaned more towards that. I could fix this. But as it went along, lies started popping up. More abuse started happening. I started feeling very uncomfortable. It got to a point to where I had to work outside the home while he stayed home. My money would come home and pay the bills, and whatever was left would go into his account. He would also work. Now, don't get me wrong. He worked from home, and what he worked for, he would use. He worked to use. And, it was really a sad situation. And trust me, I loved this man. He was, at first, he was everything, you want a man to be, especially when you've been through so much crazy crap. So as it went along, it got worse and worse and worse. I was sent to a restaurant one time to go get some food, and as I got out to go into the restaurant, a gentleman stopped me and asked me, was I who I was? Was I Lisa? I said, yes. Well, come to find out, I was almost getting pimped out. I wasn't aware of it. So, went home. Didn't get no food, but went home. It broke out into a fight. I was scared by that point, terrified. There was so many instances like that, it just became a norm. I came home 7 times. I left him 7 times, but every time, all I could think about was, he's going to die, and I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be able to save him. Or he's going to change tomorrow, and everything's going to be okay, and I just screwed it all up. Because I was already pegged as a screw-up. I've been told I was nothing most of my life. I wasn't worthy of anything. I wasn't capable. And trust me, I'm not stupid. I'm a very smart girl. I've learned to do a lot of things in my life that's kept me alive. So I came home 7 times, but as I was working outside the home, there would be days where he would say, let me take you to work. He'd take me to work, and then I would get home and my car would be sold, or his car would be gone. And then I would later find out that it was being used as trade for drugs and all that good jazz. So I got to the point where I would get, quite frankly, pissed off. And I started going to get in the car. There was one time I had called the person and told them that I had the cops with me when I didn't. I lied. Yeah, I was scared to death. He was a big man. He was a drug dealer. And he had my car. So I told him that I had the cops with me and he had 5 minutes to get my car to a certain location. And I sat back and he actually brought the car. Well, when I got the car, I happened to stop by a gas station. And I walked in and he was standing there. And we went face to face. He reared up his fist, ready to fight me. And everybody knows me knows. Most of my fights have always been men. They've always hit me. I've always defended myself and fought back. So I was prepared to fight this almost 7-foot tall man he looked like to me. I'm not lying, he was a huge man. And he had his wife with him behind him. So as he was in my face yelling, I was prepared to do whatever. It was all on camera. So the police came. He ended up getting banned from the town, but it didn't stop what was going on. I thought it would, but it didn't. It just put my life in a little more danger. At that time. Am I in danger now? No. No, it's all been taken care of. So as we went along, things got worse and worse and worse. I came home 7 times. I went back 7 times. And then endured all types of mental stuff. From, and pardon me as I tell this part, from describing parts of your body that may not be where they're supposed to be in your 50s. You get made fun of. You get made fun of a lot about your looks. You get made fun of how you talk. You get talked about while you're sitting there. And then the women started coming in. He would break up with me when he was ready to go have his flings. Yeah, he was a player narcissist, I guess you could say. But I was living in the home. So he would break up and leave. And then he would come back home like nothing happened. And then women started contacting me and letting me know, which put me in the hospital. And I had some heart issues that stress wasn't good for. And yes, it put me in the hospital. So that's when I kind of started thinking, okay, something's got to change here because this is not correct. How am I letting this be okay? This is not okay. So as we went along, a lot of abuse, all of it. Started having sex when I didn't want to. But I found that when he went to sleep, it gave me alone time. It gave me time to kind of sit back and start thinking. Well, we finally moved to this one spot that was a blessing to me. I ended up meeting another young lady, my sweet, sweet tea. That's what I call her. This woman, she saved me bigger than big, or she helped me save me in that situation. Because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have opened my eyes to some of the things that was going on because she's seen them right off the bat. We became best friends immediately, and she became one of my spiritual advisors. And when I tell you it takes a village to run my life, it takes a village to run my life, or it has, I guess, to get me to this point. So she became one of my safe spots, my safe places. I could call on her anytime I felt any kind of way, and she started helping me see that I was not in a good space. I wasn't physically, mentally, emotionally, every bit of me was messed up. And I asked myself every day, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get out of this? What's going on here? But every day I was mentally being manipulated. I was emotionally being manipulated because, you know, he loved me. He loved me more than he's ever loved anybody in his life, right? So that sinks in. But you got this other part going, I don't know about all. How is this, you know, because now I'm older. Now I'm older and I know what love is supposed to be, but I never really have experienced that type of love. So Miss T, she started giving me a safe place to go. A couple of times that I left, she put me up and let me have a few days to get myself right. She knew I was going to go back. She knew. I mean, she was a smart little lady. But she also knew that I was going to be safe no matter what because she was still there and she was keeping an eye on me. And she worked like not even, she worked just a few feet from our RV. So it turned out to be one of the best, most amazing relationships I've ever had. So that leads me to this. One thing that I never had growing up and all through my life, even though I had my family, we all talked, we all knew, but we were all raised the same. So we all had the same advice for each other, right? One thing I never really had was the support of people that had been there, or that had that type of education to help you get through any type of abuse. I mean, it was all I knew all my life. Did I have fun? Oh my God, yes. I've had a ball in my life. Do not get me wrong. I've not been a depressed ball, butterball in the floor. I've had so many adventures in my life. I've had a lot of fun. That's how I've learned a lot of things. But what did I trade for all that fun? It was a life that was just crazy. Had no stability. I didn't know who I was. I was a lot of different people, for a lot of different people, because I was a people pleaser, that fix-it girl. So Miss T started showing me my worth. She started showing me I was worth it. And when you get beaten to a pulp by many hands, and then your worth kind of goes down the drain. I've had broken bones. I've only broken bones I've had came from men, and I'm not going to say who, but I will say it's been within the past 4 years. So to carry on, I finally had enough. I finally had enough. Miss T had been chatting with me about narcissism. I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what narcissistic people were. I mean, I just knew abuse, and I just knew alcoholics and addicts, and and all these people that were all kind of mixed up, So I really didn't know what a narcissist was until Miss T started pointing things out to me, and then I started researching, and then it was just like, holy moly, I'm going to die here. I really thought I was going to die by his hands more than once. So, but he had this way about him. He would, people who are abused know what I'm talking about. He would say, well, I didn't hit you with my hand sometimes at first. No, he would grab a pillow or something soft, and that's what he would hit me with and knock me into things. He didn't look at that as abuse or hit me with anything, even though it hurt like hell and left marks. He hit me. So anyway, this is no pity about this either. I learned some lessons I should have learned a long time ago. But I was more aware, and I was more aware of what was going on because of Miss T, because she was helping me. She was that proper support that I needed at that time to start opening my eyes. And she is a very spiritual being. She is still one of my bestest buddies and spiritual advisors to this day. Beautiful, beautiful woman, by the way. Great cook. So finally, with her help and with the help of the man I was with, because I had had enough, we had a fight. We had moved away from Miss T. I was about almost an hour from her, so I kind of lost that support except for on the phone. So we moved to another spot, which was more inland and not on the beach, and things got a little worse because we had no neighbors to hear us. So one night, we had gotten into it. He was ready to go use. There was always a pattern. One thing I learned and how I figured out my pattern was watching other patterns. I knew the patterns were there, and I started watching his patterns. So I knew when he was going to use. I knew when he was going to be mean. I knew I was going to get a ring, or I was going to get a bracelet, or whatever. Flowers. Yes, the apologies were beautiful. They were beautiful. They were everything any woman would want. But then it got to the point where shove it up your because that ain't fixing nothing. You messed up my finger, dude. That ain't fixing nothing. So it got to the point where it got worse. So one night he was irritated, ill, He was ready to go use. Of course, I always put up a fight for it. I didn't want him going and doing anything of the sort. So it got bad. It got into a very, very bad fight. And all these fights I've ever had with him, I never fought back. For some reason, with him, I never fought back, but I did with everybody else. So I guess it's because of who he was and who he knew. It kind of scared me a little more. I don't know. And two, I was alone. My family wasn't there to save me or help me or come to my rescue. I was my own rescue. So he got real bad, and he hit me. And when he hit me this time, I reared back. And when I reared back, he threw his hands up over his face because he knew I was going to hit him. He knew I wasn't a weakling. So I reared back and I swung, and when I did, I caught him in the ribs 3 times actually. And it hurt me more than anything to hit somebody. I don't like feeling my flesh on somebody else's flesh in pain. So when I hit him, I knew I was going to die that night. After it was over, he had big bruises on him, and his demeanor changed just like that. So I walked outside, and I called my brother. And I was like, Bubba, you got to come get me. He's going to kill me. My brother knew me. My family knew me. They knew I'd come and gone many times with him. And he says, okay, if you're serious about coming home this time, I'll come get you in the morning if you're still wanting to go home. Stayed up all night long. I was terrified. 6 o'clock the next morning, I called my brother and I was like, please come get me. He said, you serious? I said, yes, sir, come get me. And they did. I went home, and I never went back. But what I did do was kind of stupid, because I still wasn't healed. Still wasn't on no track to heal. But in my brain, it was just like, okay, I'm home, let's get to work. I got stuff to do, let's do it. So I did. I went to work, straight to work. Started throwing tree limbs for a living. Got into doing some trips that I actually fell in love with and do today, which are one of my safe haven places. I've noticed every time something happens bad, ironically, I get called out on a trip. And when you're traveling in these trucks, you really can't hear anything but the truck, and all you have is time to think and talk to whoever you're riding with. So when I got home, I did this stupidest thing. But I did what any red-blooded American girl would do. You rebound, baby. I did. I rebounded. I went and got me a rebound, and I should never have done that. Instead of healing, I brought in more crazy stuff, and it wasn't too much further from what I had just left. So when I had decided to let that go, I went on a trip. It was a bad night, we'll put it that way, in January, and I went on a trip. I got caught out on the road, and it couldn't have come at a better time. Went with some broken ribs that trip. It was a very interesting trip. So I get there, and it was a great trip. I get home, was about 8-9 days later. We get home to an ice storm. And this ice storm had evidently busted my pipes. Well, it took me 3 days to get from Muscle Shoals to where I was living because of the ice. So, which I wasn't 20 minutes away. Or, well, I was actually a little further than that away, but still, took me a long time. So anyway, there was this ice storm, busted my pipes, and I'm not going to go into detail about this whole situation because there are still some legal issues pending right now. But as I had to sit because the landlord refused to fix my pipes, instead she wanted to evict me, and I went through some evictions. I got an attorney after the first eviction, and then we went through a couple of more, and I finally got to move out. But while I was there was a chain reaction of events that happened that needed to happen for me. You hear that saying all the time, you got to hit rock bottom. Well, I thought I'd hit rock bottom. And when I came home, I thought I'd lost everything. I came home with just my clothes, and I'd worked my butt off for 2 years for everything that home had, including, on my stuff. So I thought I hit rock bottom. I didn't. So I had to sit for 5 months with no water. That was the first domino. But what it led into was craziness. I mean, because some things happened. I couldn't leave my home, so therefore I couldn't travel. due to court cases. And I couldn't leave my home to find a regular job at that time because some people were trying to come in my home and take my stuff. So even while I was in bed. So I ended up staying home and working about a mile or two down the road. A friend of mine happened to, another one of my angels, she happened into my life, and at a time that I needed her because my water situation had changed. I was getting water from another friend, and that situation had changed. So she offered water and a shower and this, that, and the other every day. And I've known her for a long time. I didn't even know she lived down the road from me because I was hiding. So as it went along, I lost my job. I had just bought a beautiful car. Oh, this beautiful car with a beautiful big payment. When I lost my job, I lost my car. And when all that happened, I lost food.